Hello everyone, back tuning into the 11th Winter 2019-2020 update from GWV.com. So we've done 10 updates so far, as well as 2 seasonal model roundups of the winter of 2019-2020. We've only got 13 updates penciled in, so we are coming to the end of winter updates now. Once this is out of the way, we've just got update number 12, update number 13, and also a final season one roundup to do, and then that will be it. On the 1st of December, we will release we're going to release the GWV.com Winter 2019-2020 update. So it's all getting very, very serious now. We are very much at the business end of the updates. And we've got a true epic for you this week. So we've got 81 tabs to get through. It's going to be a long video. And I just hope you find it interesting and informative. We're going to put a couple of breaks along the way, so you'll be able to get up, stretch your legs, and have a walk around and come back to the video later, perhaps, if you want to do that. So there will be a couple of breaks in the video. But sit back, get yourself a cup of chair, get yourself a cup of tea, get yourself some snacks and nibbles, because we are going to be here for a little while. We're going to be looking specifically with the analogues at October and also September rainfall. That will be in the third and final part of the video. We've got plenty of analogues to go at before that, actually. Starting us off will be some October pat matches, and there'll be more analogues on the way as well. So it's going to be an epic. Hope you find it interesting and informative. Just say a big thank you to our analogues guru James Ackrill for getting all of the analogues together for us. So big thank you to James for doing that. Also a big thank you to our friend Richard Trott for the winter updates GIF. I say it's going to be a long video, so if you can't watch it all in one go, then don't worry, the video will be placed on the winter updates page with a written summary going over everything that we discuss in the video. And I'll get that onto the written updates page this evening. There's going to be a live stream on YouTube between 5 and 6 o'clock where I'll be talking about this winter update and taking your questions if you have any. So you can ask questions about this update or in general about the weather between 5 and 6 o'clock on YouTube. You'll need to subscribe to the YouTube channel to be involved with that. We won't be streaming it on GWV.com live. We'll put replay on there probably tomorrow. There's also going to be a Christmas update today, so how on earth I'm going to get it all in, I don't know, but I will get it all in for you. Christmas update, probably going to be around 7 o'clock, something like that. It'll be after the live stream. Right, so I think that's everything we're going to tell you. With 81 tabs to get through, I think we'd better crack on. So, as I said, we're going to start off with a little bit of pattern matching, just to start us off for this video. So this is the 500 millibar geopotential height anomaly for October 2019. It was quite an unusual month again. So it was a month that had quite extensive northern blocking, actually, lots of high pressure up to the north. It also had high pressure to our south through here. And it had deep low pressure coming in from off the Atlantic into the UK and into northern Europe as well. So a northern blocking month, unsettled month as well, with lots of low pressure from off the Atlantic, but some above average heights, some high pressure across southern parts of Europe. So I've gone back through the archives and tried to find years that had a similar sort of match. You never get a 100% like-for-like match, but these are the ones that I thought were perhaps the closest. So we've got October 1852, excuse me, and this one had below average heights coming into the northwest of Europe from off the Atlantic. It had a ridge there extending down through Canada into northeast parts of America, and also a bit of a blocking signal, although the high pressure was a little bit centred more towards Iceland. What do you think comparing those two? Please let me know in the comments and also in the live stream which years you think are the closest match. I mean, it's not perfect, but I think that one does have some similarities. So we get rid of that and go on to our next October pattern match, which is 1864. I'm less keen on this one. Yes, it does have the blocking up to the north. Let's change the colour. It does have the high pressure up towards Greenland and Iceland. But it's got low pressure coming in from Eastern America through the Atlantic into the UK and much of Northwest Europe. But low pressure is a bit further south compared to October 2019. So I'm less keen on that one. The blocking though is in a similar position up towards Greenland and Iceland. We've also got 1880. This is October 1880. Again, let's compare. So again, a bit of a similarity. It does have that blocking towards Greenland and Iceland. That's not particularly unusual in October. Lots of Octobers have that blocking. And lots of Octobers tend to have low pressure coming in off the Atlantic into UK and Northern Europe. It's really Southern Europe that's a little bit different, because that's kind of like a classic negative AO, negative NAO type pattern we had there in October 1880, whereas this is just a little bit more different with this ridge across southern parts of Europe. That's what makes it a little bit tricky to nail this October down. But anyway, got October 1880 there. The next one that I managed to find was 1894, October 1894. Again, this one with a lot of high pressure up towards Greenland and Iceland. It's got the low pressure that's coming in from the Atlantic into the UK and Northern Europe. It does have a bit of high pressure down across Southern Europe, but more particularly over towards the southeast of Europe. What do you think about those ones? I'm a little bit less keen on that one, actually, October 1894. Then we've got October 1903, very wet October, this one, with the below average heights coming in off the Atlantic, bit of high pressure up to the north, jet stream is coming through like that. Again, a little bit less keen on October 1903 as a pattern match. And then we've also got October 1928, that in the browser is wrong, so let's quickly change that over. So, again, this is October 1928 compared to October 2019. So this one, again, it's got that high pressure up towards Greenland. It's got low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. It does have some high pressure to our south, but not really ridging into southern parts of Europe. So, again, it's a slight similarity, I think, but it's not that good a match. Then a long gap to 2002. So, this is the next sort of close-ish match that I could find. Again, this one has the blocking, October 2002 has the blocking up towards Greenland and Iceland. It has the low pressure in from the Atlantic into the UK. It does have some higher pressure, not particularly high pressure, but it does have some higher pressure down towards southern parts of Europe. If we compare the two, October 2019 to October 2002, again, there is a bit of a similarity with that one, I think. This is October 2004. I think this could be one of the better matches. So, again, this one has high pressure blocking towards Greenland. It extends down towards eastern parts of America. Low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. It doesn't quite extend far enough north up to Scandinavia. But low pressure coming off the Atlantic and some relatively high pressure across southern parts of Europe as well. So comparing October 2004 to October 2019, I mean, it's not a perfect match, but I think there is more of a similarity with that one, perhaps, compared to any of the other years. Let's see it again. Please let me know in the comments and during the live stream this afternoon between 5 and 6 o'clock on YouTube which years you think are the closest match. And then the final match is 2012, October 2012. Again, this one with the above average heights up towards Greenland and up to in the north latitudes. Low pressure coming in off the Atlantic, extending up to Scandinavia. No particular area of high pressure across southern Europe. But if we compare October 2019 to October 2012, again, I think there's some similarity there. I personally think October 2004 is the closest match. But again, please let me know what you think in the comments. Right, so just running through those pattern match years. So the first one is winter of 1852-1853. This one's quite a cold winter with below average heights to our south, above average heights up to our north, and we pull winds in from the north or northeasterly direction with that one, 1852-1853. We've also got 1880-1881. This one, a very cold winter with below average heights to our south, blocking up towards Greenland. We've got the jet stream going a long way southwards as well. This is a cold and wintry. October winter, I should say, for winter of 1880-1881. Has a severe and freezing cold January in 1881. Also got another really cold winter here with 1894, 1895 with the below average heights to our south, blocking up to the north. That brings the winds in from an easterly direction. That's the last severe winter until 1940, the winter of 1895. There won't be another sub-zero CET month until January 1940 after February 1895. Then we've got 1903, 1904. This is a phenomenally wet winter, very, very wet indeed, with low pressure in from off the Atlantic. Then also we have got 1928, 1929. This is another cold winter. This one with high pressure sitting up to our northeast and bringing in those very cold easterly winds with winter of 1928, 1929. Then we've got 2002, 2003, a long gap from 1928, 1929 to 2002, 2003. This one looks like it should be a cold winter, but it isn't particularly. It has the winds coming in from an easterly direction, but it isn't a particularly cold winter. It's one of those winters that never really comes together from a cold perspective. The next winter is 2004-2005 with our October pattern matches. This one again takes high pressure out to west and brings down these northwesterly winds. So it's almost a cold winter, but not quite. The first half of the winter is very mild. The second half of the winter is quite a lot colder. It does have a white Christmas in northern areas in 2004. And then finally, the final October 2019 pattern match, October pattern match winter is winter of 2012-2013. This one with high pressure to our north, low pressure is to our south, just here, across many central parts of Europe. We tend to be bringing in winds from an easterly or northeast direction. It's quite a cold winter, 2012-13. It's a winter that gets colder and colder as it goes along, culminating in a severely cold March. So putting all of those October 2019 pattern matches together, we come away with December's, all December's combined, looking like this, tending to have above average heights out in the west and also to our northeast, below average heights over to the south of the country, and that leaves us doing something like that with flowing projection. So there is some cold potential actually with these Decembers. Not a particularly strong blocking signal. There is a little bit of cold potential with those Decembers. However, look at the Januaries, much stronger cold signal for the Januaries, with high pressure tending to be blocking things out up towards Greenland, below average heights tending to be to our south, and winds coming in from an easterly direction. So cold and wintry for the Januaries with our October pat matches, and also for the Februaries as well. Has high pressure extensively to the north and low pressure extensively to the south, bringing in those easterly winds. Very cold signal for the Februaries too with our October pattern matches. And then March continues it, so extended and potentially quite prolonged and cold winter with these October pattern match years, taking the above average heights away to the northwest and having the below average heights to west-southwest. Again, the jet stream will be lining up like this, and we're pulling in cold air from the north as well. Finally, this is how the winters themselves are looking with our October pattern matches. Quite mouth-watering from a cold perspective, with the below-average heights centred to our south and the above-average heights centred to the north. And yes, we are tending to be bringing in wind from the east, so a very cold signal with our October pattern matches in terms of winters that follow them. Right, so that's part one of the video. We talked for just under 15 minutes. I'll pause the video there. Very interesting pattern matches. Please let me know which years in terms of Octobers you think is the closest match to October 2019 in the comments at GWV, and also, of course, during the live stream that we're going to be doing on YouTube between 5 and 6 o'clock. I think October 2004, but let me know which is you think. Again, it's just a judgment call this. So actually the October pattern match, I can't tell you the October pattern matches or the other pattern matches. We did some for September. may do some for November, not sure. But the pattern matches don't go into the winter forecast because it's just really a judgment call as to which are the closest matches. So it's very difficult in terms of pattern matching to be able to put that into an actual forecast, really. So this just really a bit of fun to start the video off. But anyway, let me know which Octobers you think were the closest match, either in the comments at GWV or when we do the live stream between 5 and 6 o'clock on YouTube. I'm going to pause the video there. We talked for a quarter of an hour, had a bit of fun. I'm going to pause the video there, and when we come back, we're going to be starting the second part of this 11th Winter 2019-2020 update, discussing the NAO. And we'll see what happened in terms of the NAO during October. There'll be a little bit of a reanalysis and some analogs to go with that as well. So I'll see you back here in around 2 seconds' time. Okay, we're back. And we're ready to resume the 11th Winter 2019-2020 update from GWV.com. So, in the first part of the video, we was talking about October pattern matches, or looking at October pattern matches, having a bit of fun, and seeing which years, in terms of October's 500 millibar geopotential height anomaly, was closest to October 2019, which was a rather strange October height anomaly. So we did that in the first part of the video. We're going to kick off the second part of this video talking about the NAO. So here we go then, and we've got the NAO number in for October 2019. So this is the full list of monthly NAOs going all the way back to 1950. There we are, the year of 1950 just there. January 1950 had an NAO number of 0.92. Another month, February, had an NAO number of 0 plus 40. March a little bit negative with the NAO. So we go down through the years, you see the positive and the negative numbers. So when the number is negative, then you've got a negative NAO, of course. For example, 1956, February 1956, severely cold month, had a negative NAO of minus 1.12. Conversely, let's try and find a very mild NAO month, or a very mild month. So, for example, we have January 1990 with a positive NAO at plus 1.04, and February 1990 at plus 1.41. Pair of very, very positive NAO months, those ones. Right, so let's go down to 2019, shall we? And of course, this is 2019 just here. We begin the year with the NAO in its positive phase. Through the first 4 months of the year, we did post a positive NAO number. May, though, went very negative at minus 2.62, and that's where we picked up the winter updates, actually. The very first winter update looked at winters following May's with a very negative NAO, and because that's what happened in 2019, of course. Since then, though, the NAO has stayed in its negative phase, so we have June coming out at minus 1.09, July coming out at minus 1.43, August coming out at minus 1.17, September only just slightly negative at minus 0.16, but still just about on the negative side. And then the very latest number is October, which comes out even more negative, actually, than either September or August. It's our most negative NAO month since July, comes out at minus 1.41. So we have now had, can you believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months in succession, 6 consecutive months with negative NAOs, which is quite unusual. Actually, there's only a few years that have been negative with the NAO with consecutive months from May to October, and those are 1952. So if we come up here, we can see that the year of 1952 had May, June, July, August, September, October, and also interestingly going on to November and December negative with the LEO. Then a long run to 1998. So if I just scroll this up a little bit more, we can see the year of 1998 there. And again, we have May, June, July, August, September, October with a negative LEO in 1998. Also, 2001 has this period from May to October with the negative LEO. So again, we've got May, June, July, August, September, October. That's a little bit different though, it's only very slightly negative for all of those months. I'm not sure how relevant that one is really. Also got 2010. 2010 just here. So we've got to think back to 2010 is that every month in 2010 was negative with the LEO. So yes, the LEO was negative from May to October, but actually every month from January 2010 right way through to December 2010, every single calendar month in 2010 was negative with the LEO. And then the last year since 1950 is 2012, that again has May, June, July, August, September, October negative with the LEO, just about still in November too in 2012. So not that many years have done this, what we've done this year. But there are a few, so just have a look at a little bit of reanalysis for what those winters were like that followed those LEOs that were negative from May to October. We've got 1952, 1953. This one, a rather cold winter with below average heights to our south and above average heights to our west-northwest. So this one is bringing in quite cold winds from the northeast. So sort of regular cold snaps through winter of 1952, 1953. Then a really long gap to 98, to 98, 99. Winter of 98, 99 looks like that, with above average heights out to our west, below average heights to our north, northeast, sending the jet stream on a northwest, southeast alignment. That's a mild 1990s winter, but it does have some cold snaps, particularly so for northern parts of the country. But overall, it's another one of those mild 1990s winters. There are a lot of them, the 1990s. We've also got 2001, 2002. This one with above average heights to west-southwest, below average heights up to the north. This one really masked what happened through this winter. The first part of the winter in December 2001 to like the first week of January 2002 was actually quite cold and frosty, but then the rest of the winter turned milder. It turned very wet in the latter part of January and through February 2002. We've also got 2010, 2011, which includes the December to Remember. Of course, the December to Remember had the above average heights over Greenland. Overall, for the winter, it's not a really strong blocking signal, because what happened is we had the blocking, of course, over Greenland through December 2010, but then when it went away, it never really came back, and we finished up with a mild westerly February in 2011. Anyway, that's how the reanalysis looks for the winter of 2010, 2011. And then finally, the final winter that we have in terms of the LEO being negative from May to October, as we have managed to do with this particular year, 2019. The last winter we have is 2012, 2013. We looked at it, saw it in the pattern match years. It's also showing up with our LEO data, and this one has the above average heights again city to the north. It has the below average heights to the south southeast. We bring in the winds from the east. It's an on-off winter, and it's a winter that gets colder and colder as it goes along. It does culminate in the coldest March since either 1962 or potentially 1893, depending on which temperature series you take. So putting all of that together, this is how all Decembers combine following a negative LEO from May to October. So for December, of course, we've got the December to Remember in with this, December 2010. So this does about skewer things a little bit, because that's an extremely blocked month and had very, very extensive high latitude blocking. But overall, yes, it does have a signal for high pressure to be over Greenland. It also has a signal for low pressure to be to our south and southeast, and we bring in the winds from an east or northeasterly direction with these Decembers. All Januaries combined look like that, so a more anticyclonic signal in the Januaries when the NEO is negative from May to October, with above average heights over and yes also to the north of the country. So the Januaries could be quite cold, but the blocking is further south compared to December, so probably dry frosty type Januaries favour there. Then we have February, and in all February's combined following a negative NEO from May to October. We tend to have the above average heights then sinking in towards the middle of the Atlantic, below average heights setting up to our east. We've got more of an Atlantic influence here. Notice the northern blocking, very extensive in December. By February, it's going away and being replaced by low pressure up towards Greenland. So there's perhaps a bit of cold snap potential for those Februaries, but probably not sustained cold. And overall, you will think those Februaries probably favour milder Atlantic-driven type conditions. And then finally, all of the Marches combined looks like that, with above average heights over and to the east of us, below average heights to our south-southeast. We could be pulling in cold easterly winds, such as we did in March 2013. And again, remember, we have got March 2013 within this analogues package, which might be skewering the anomaly a little bit. But overall, I would suspect the Marches generally, if you was to take out March 2013, I would suspect the Marches are probably favouring relatively mild and quite dry conditions. Putting all of those years together, this is how all winters combined are looking, following a negative NEO from May to October. Tends to have, does have a blocking signal, tends to have above average heights around Greenland, but also extending down into the Atlantic. Below average heights tending to be across central and eastern parts of Europe. So the coldest weather overall through these winters, pushed in towards the east and the southeast of Europe. Less so for us, although remember, we do have December showing up as potentially a very cold northern blocking type month. So when the NEO is negative from May to October, possibly we favour a rather more front-loaded type winter with the cold. We favour having the cold conditions in the earlier part of winter as opposed to the latter part of winter. Perhaps that's the case. And that is something that we saw last week, of course, with the outside the box analogues from our good friend Richard Traw. This is how the NEO is currently looking in terms of the NEO observed and forecast. So again, black line shows where we've been with the North Atlantic oscillation. A red line's at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the NEO to go. So as we just saw, October was generally negative with the NEO. It had negative NEO through October. September was weekly negative, and also we had August coming out negative, and before that we had July, June and May also negative with the NEO. Where the NEO is right now is just they're actually weekly positive. GFS ensembles are forecasting that for the next few days will stay weekly positive with the NEO and then probably drop it down towards neutral. No sign of going into a negative phase with the NEO during November, though, although we do have some outlier members here that are perhaps going a little bit more negative with it in the second half of November. But overall, I think around neutral, possibly just on the positive side of neutral, is where the NEO is trending. And so it could be that November is actually our first positive NEO month, perhaps since April. So it's been a long time coming, but we could be about to see our first, only I would have thought very weekly positive, but our first weekly positive NEO month for this November, possibly since April. The AO is looking like this. So again, the black line shows where we've been with the Arctic oscillation. The red line's at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic oscillation to go. So you can see that through most of September and into the first half of October, the Arctic oscillation was trending in its positive phase. Since around the middle of October, we've actually been on the weekly negative side with the AO. That's where we are right now, sort of negative, weekly negative to negative. Look where the GFS ensembles are taking the Arctic oscillation, though, around the middle of November into the second half of the month. Absolutely collapsing it, crashing it. That is a crash of the Arctic oscillation that's going on there. And this, of course, these indexes are only reflecting the atmospheric state. They're not driving anything in their own terms. They're just telling us what the atmosphere is doing via an index. So when the NAO, for example, is positive, you're going to have low pressure around Iceland, have high pressure around the Azores. You'll strengthen the westerly zonal flow. When the NAO is negative, it's the flip on that. You'll have higher pressure around Iceland and lower pressure close to the Azores, or a weakened Azores high and a weakened Icelandic low, if you like. Same thing for the Arctic oscillation. So when the AO is positive, you're going to have strengthened low pressure and a strong polar vortex around Greenland and the Arctic and the North Pole. But when the Arctic oscillation is in its negative phase, you will have weakened low pressure around Greenland and the Arctic. Sometimes you will get high pressure blocking around Greenland and up into the Arctic as well. And that particularly happens when the AO goes very negative, such as we see there. So that is very much a signal for high pressure to be building within the northern latitudes. High latitude blocking for the middle and second half of November could be expected with the Arctic oscillation as negative as that. Very, very interesting the way the AO is shifting into a very negative phase, but at the same time, the NAO has actually lifted out of its negativity, at least for the time being. How long that lasts, we'll have to wait and see. So this is how things look in terms of a temperature at 10 HPA over the North Pole from the JMA. It's all very confusing what's happening over the Arctic at the moment. So the grey line is the trend line. So we can see that temperature should be cooling on average at this time of the year over the North Pole and over the Arctic. Due to that, we're going into the Arctic winter, of course. So it's a very cold time of year with average temperatures now should be around -70 at 10 HPA in the stratosphere over North Pole. But the black line shows that we're actually colder than average, and this black line is dipping day by day, actually. So that's where it is right now. It is somewhat under the grey line. It's actually heading down close around -75 now at 10 HPA. If we go a little bit lower down to 30 HPA, this is a bit closer to the troposphere, we can see the temperature is also colder than average at 30 HPA. Again, the grey line shows we should be cooling down at this time of year, but the black line shows where we are right now. We are under that grey line. So yes, it's colder than average, both at 10 HPA and also at 30 HPA in the atmosphere over the North Pole. Now, when this happens, it would typically be associated with a strengthening of the polar vortex and probably a positive phase of the NAO and of the AO. What we actually see, though, and it would also tend to be associated with a strengthened zone of wind. We do have that very strong zone of wind as well. So this is from weatheriscool.com. It's showing a lot of different coloured lines here. If you want to know what all of them depict, you have to look at the first winter updates. I haven't got time to go through them all right now. But I can tell you that the most important line really is the black line just here, because that's the trend for this time of year. So at this time of year, as the temperature at 10 HPA is getting colder, so the zonal wind at 10 HPA in the stratosphere is getting stronger. These are all various ways of looking at the strength of the polar vortex at its roots in the stratosphere. Now we actually have, this is showing where we are right now, we actually have an almost record strong zonal wind at 10 HPA, and it may actually break records in the next few days. Just there, that's where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the strength of the zonal winds to be in around 3 or 4 days time, and we are almost at record-breaking levels there. So for the next few days, we have a really, really strong zone of wind at 10 HPA and a colder than average temperature at 10 HPA, yet the Arctic oscillation is going to be going increasingly negative. And this tells us that there is a really quite dramatic disconnect between what's happening in the troposphere, where we seem to be really quite well set up for northern blocking, and in the stratosphere, where it looks like everything is pretty much set up and on its way for a strengthened polar vortex and increased westerlies. So it's a very, very confusing picture in terms of what's happening in the stratosphere at the moment, or over the Arctic, I suppose I should say, over the North Pole, both in terms of the stratosphere at 10 HPA and also in terms of the troposphere. What we do see, though, is that after reaching this peak, which is nearly a date record-breaking peak that's coming up in the next few days, after that, the GFS ensembles are then crashing the zonal winds, not going into reverse. To get a reversal, you have to take those lines down to there. But certainly from where it's going to be in a few days' time to where the GFS ensembles are forecasting it to be in around 10 to 14 days' time, we do see really quite a dramatic drop there in the strength of the zonal wind. So that's really interesting. That is happening without any sort of sudden stratospheric warming, but a very dramatic de-acceleration of the zonal winds coming up in the next couple of weeks from a really strong level to a much weaker level in terms of the zonal winds in the stratosphere. The other coloured lines are what the CFS-V2, got 4 CFS-V2 runs. It's run 4 times a day. So they are what the CFS-V2 are forecasting with their 4 runs for the next few months. So we've got November just here, we've got December just there, we've got January just there, we've got February just there. Excuse me. When the zonal winds go into reverse, get down to this line or below it, we're normally having a sudden stratospheric warming. So we actually have around 3 members of the 4 CFS runs, 3 runs here that are seemingly going for a sudden stratospheric warming during December, reversing the zonal winds, sending the zonal winds into reverse, which would typically follow a sudden stratospheric warming. That one only just does it, that pink line there, but the blue one, the blue line that we have there, and this other pink line just here, they are getting the zonal winds into reverse. We also have a fourth pink line that doesn't get the zonal winds into reverse until around there. That one doesn't get it into reverse until February, I don't think. But 3 out of 4 of the CFS V2 runs are going for a reversal of the zonal winds during December. So that's very early on in winter. Normally a sudden stratospheric warming and reversal of zonal winds will happen later in the winter, but that's very early on for that to be happening. Interesting times in terms of what's happening in the Arctic, both at the stratosphere and also at the troposphere level. And what I'm particularly interested in is this massive de-acceleration of the zonal winds from that very high level that's coming up in the next few days to a much, much weaker level in around 10 to 14 days' time, if the GFS ensembles are right. And that's happening without any sudden stratospheric warming to do that. So that's really interesting what's going on there. It may start to generate the same kind of blocking effect that you would get from a sudden stratospheric warming. That will be interesting to observe, see how that comes out. Right, moving on to the QBO, the quasi-biennial oscillation, which is, again, just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state. This time, it's an index that's telling us how strong the zonal westerlies are, if you like. So when you're in the westerly phase of the QBO, you're going to be strengthening the zonal westerlies. When you're in the easterly phase of the QBO, you'll be weakening the zonal westerlies. So, for example, we have here on this chart, January 1976, in a westerly QBO, the number comes out at plus 9.22, and that westerly QBO continues through and continues strengthening through the first half of 1976, but then in the middle part of the year it begins to go into reverse, and in the second half of 1976 we get these negative numbers appearing. That is a switcheroo, a switch around from the westerly to the easterly QBO. So the first half of 1976 had a westerly QBO, the second half of 1976 had an easterly QBO, and when you go into an easterly QBO you weaken the zonal winds. And so ECQBOs can be associated with an increased risk of northern blocking and colder winters. Not quite as straightforward as that, though, because there are several, or have been several, ECQBO winters that are also mild winters. This is 2019 just here, and we begin 2019 with a westerly QBO, and this westerly QBO strengthens through 2019. Notice these numbers getting more and more positive until we reach our peak just there. Since then, we've been gradually weakening the westerly QBO. The numbers, while still positive, have been getting lower. So the current number for October 2019 is in, and it comes out at plus 7.27. That's a further weakening from September, which was plus 8.25, and August, which was plus 9.97, and July, which was plus 10.96. So month by month we are weakening westerly QBO. We haven't yet gone into the easterly QBO, but we are clearly weakening the westerly phase of the QBO, and we are clearly on our way into a transition from the west to the east QBO. We don't quite know when the easterly QBO will officially start, but I have a feeling it'll be sometime through this winter. It may happen early, so it might happen in December. More likely is that it will happen in January or February, but I think this winter will be a west to east transitioning QBO winter. This is from NASA. This is showing the westerly and easterly QBOs on a day-by-day basis. So where we've got these sandy brown colours, that's where we've got the westerly QBO. Where we've got the blues and greens, that's where we've got the easterly QBO. We go right way back to 2017 with this. So this is where we are right now, of course, 2019 just there. That's October 2019. So up here, if you think that this is the top of the atmosphere, that's 10 HPA, where we're just talking about in terms of the stratospheric level. This is 300 HPA down on the surface. So up here, this is where the easterly QBO is beginning, and it's on its way. And you can see how it's sort of descending down through the layers of the atmosphere, going ever lower on a day-by-day basis, gradually trending downwards. Now, to get the ECQBO into the troposphere, we essentially have to take those blue and green colours down to 30 to 50 HPA. That's kind of like the all-important level. 30 to 50 HPA is the boundary level of the troposphere. So 30 HPA would be kind of like the boundary of the troposphere to the stratosphere. And so we've got to get these blue and green colours down to that level. And they are almost there now, you'll see. In the last few days, they've almost got to 30 HPA. Just not quite, but they are almost there. You can see how these brown coloured lines are gradually being pushed further and further downwards. Before very much longer, may happen in December, I think we will see these green and blue coloured bars on a day-by-day basis getting consistently to that 30 HPA level, and that will be the ECQBO then moving into the troposphere. So this tells us that the ECQBO is continuing to descend through the top levels of the atmosphere. It hasn't yet quite reached the troposphere, but it's on its way. The westerly QBO continues to weaken. Notice how thick these colour bars are just here. That's when the westerly QBO is at its strongest. So very thick brown colour bars there, but look how ragged they look now as this westerly QBO weakens and fades, and this easterly QBO pushes down into the troposphere. So the easterly QBO is on its way, and I think we will transition into the easterly QBO during this winter. Next, going to have a look at the oceans. This is how the oceans were looking last week. We did last week's 10th update. Got our 3 areas of interest. The ENSO region is just there. We've got the Northern Pacific up here. We've got the North Atlantic over there. That's how the oceans were looking last week. This is how the oceans are looking this week. So in terms of the ENSO region, again, very little change in the ENSO region. We're around El Nino or ENSO neutral. We are neither in an El Nino or a La Nina. We just have rather warmer than average conditions through those ENSO regions in the equatorial Pacific Ocean, but not reaching El Nino threshold. So in terms of the ENSO region, ENSO neutral, I think it's very highly likely now that this winter will be an ENSO neutral winter, and that's what we're going to be looking at with our analogues. I can tell you that now. Next week we're going to be doing a bit of an ENSO special next week. In the northern part of the Pacific Ocean, that's how we're looking. So again, very little change in the northern Pacific Ocean. It remains warmer than average up here in this northeastern corner of the Pacific Ocean, away from the coastal area anyway, where it's a little bit colder, but overall still significantly warmer than average. Sea surface temperature anomalies there. The Atlantic is quite interesting. That's how the North Atlantic was looking last week when we did last week's 10th winter update. This is how the Atlantic Ocean is looking now. So we do appear to be warming things up, actually, to the south of Greenland. It's getting a bit warmer there. And also down here in the tropical Atlantic, it looks like things are warming through the tropical Atlantic too. We don't have a large area of colder than average sea surface temperature on its own in the middle. So this is not quite a tripole, but it could be starting to shift in that direction. If we was to see this area starting to become colder, that's an important area from Newfoundland down the eastern seaboard of the States. If we was to start to see cold and average SST anomalies there, going all the way over towards Spain, so that sort of area just there, if that was to go colder, then that will give us a tripod. It isn't quite a tripod yet, but I think since last week, we have probably warmed those sea surface temperature anomalies to the south of Greenland. I think we've done that, and definitely we have warmed them through the tropical Atlantic too, so quite interesting what's going on in the Atlantic at the moment. This is the Southern Oscillation Index from Queensland Government and Bureau of Meteorology. So again, like all of the other indexes that we just talked about, the QBO, the NEO, the AO, this is just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state, this time looking in the southern Pacific Ocean. When the SOI is in its negative phase, the atmospheric setup will be reflective of El Nino. When the SOI is in its positive phase, the atmospheric setup will be reflective of La Nina. If we scroll down here, we can see all of the day's daily returns. So it's measuring the air pressures between Tahiti, just there in that column, and Darwin, just there. And then we have our actual QBO numbers just here, SOI numbers, I should say, just there. So we're trading negative and positive numbers, really. The 3rd and 4th of November, for example, came out at -10, -34. 5th of November came out -34. Very negative with the SOI. This tells us that the atmospheric setup was reflective of El Nino, but by the 7th of November, actually got really quite positive at +15.84. 9th of November, the latest day we have, comes out at -11.01. So whilst the atmosphere is swinging like this between negative and positive returns in terms of the SOI, that would tell us that we are neither in a consistent El Nino or a consistent La Nina pattern, and therefore we will be at ENSO neutral, which is exactly where we are with sea surface temperature anomalies in that El Nino threshold, ENSO neutral threshold, and likely to stay at ENSO neutral through this winter. We can see that the 30-day SOI average, just here indicated by this red line, that's sort of flatlining away at just sort of weekly negative, around -4 on the scale. So still just about into El Nino type threshold, but probably on the warm side of ENSO neutral, if anything. The Atlantic 2019 hurricane season continues, so these are the current numbers that we have for the 2019 hurricane season. Total depressions coming out at 19, total storms coming out at 17, total hurricanes coming out at 6, and major category 3 or above hurricanes coming out at 3. No change with that on last week's numbers. Looks like this hurricane season is very rapidly drawing to a close and winding down. It's been an above average hurricane season. They say that on this Wikipedia page. Although they also say that many of the storms were weak and short-lived. So yes, it has been an above-average hurricane season, not a hyperactive hurricane season, but certainly more hurricanes and tropical storms and depressions than we would normally expect. It does look as though this hurricane season is very rapidly coming to a close. That's how the solar disk is looking on our side of this today from solarham.net. So we have a spotless solar disk. We have no sunspots whatsoever to be seen. So therefore solar activity is at very low levels and is expected to remain at very low levels. This is the GWV's 11th winter update solar tracker, updated to the 10th of November by our good friend James Ackrill. And it confirms what we talked about in the updates throughout this season. We are at solar minimum. The orange line is depicting each individual day's sunspot. So we are getting the occasional day that has a sunspot, a very, very minimal level of activity. But those days are outnumbered by these long stretches where we don't have any sunspots. And of course that's a change on what happened earlier in the year, where you see from this orange line just here lifting up regularly that most days earlier in the year with sunspots were outnumbering those that didn't have sunspots. Now that's the reverse. Most days at the moment without sunspots are outnumbering those that have sunspots. Our trend lines, which are the thick red and thick green lines, they're flatlining away on the floor of the chart despite these occasional days that have just one or two sunspots. Generally the trend lines are flatlining away. We see solar flux up here, which is kind of like the noise that's being given by the sun's activity. That is also flatlining away. Very quiet sun at the moment, both in terms of sunspots and also in terms of solar flux. So this is exactly what you expect to see when you are at solar minimum. We've talked about this a couple of updates ago. This is very likely to be the solar minimum winter of solar cycle 24, and through re-analysis we did see what that could mean for this winter. This is from my good friend Richard Trott, so it's showing me current run of spotlessness. So the current stretch without sunspots is 7 days. That is a total of 75% of the year, 235 days of 2019 have been without sunspots. I say that's 75% of the year. That's up, of course, increase from 2018, which had 221 days without sunspots, which was 61% of the year. When you get like 75% of the year without sunspots, that is deep solar minimum. We are at a very, very deep solar minimum indeed. And as I say, this could stretch on for some time yet. And then finally, for this third part of this second part of the 11th Winter 2019-2020 update, we're going to look at Siberian snow cover. So that's how things were looking across Siberia and Russia and Scandinavia last week on the 1st of November. In terms of Siberian snow cover, let's have a look at the latest, and that's it for the 8th of November. So they've actually lost some of that snow cover from western parts of Russia during the first week of November. That's quite interesting. That's pulled back a little bit from western Russia, but at the same time over Scandinavia, we actually gained snow cover across parts of Scandinavia, particularly Baltic areas are more snow covered now than they were a week ago. And certainly haven't lost anything across Scandinavia, probably made some gains, if anything. Let's compare the current situation with past years back to 1998 then. And this is how things were looking on the 8th of November 2018. So we're ahead of 2018 for Russian snow cover and also for Scandinavia snow cover as well. That's 2017. We're ahead of 2017 for Russian snow cover, just about, I think, and also for Scandinavian cover. I have to say we're doing very well with snow cover across Scandinavia. That's 2016. We're behind 2016 for both Russian and Scandinavian cover. The whole of Scandinavia was covered in snow by this point in 2016, and that snow line had also extended into eastern parts of Europe as well. We're well ahead of 2015, though, for both Scandinavian and Russian snow cover. We're ahead of 2014 for, actually probably on a par with 2014 for Russian snow cover, and probably on a par with it for Scandinavian snow cover as well. That's 2013, so we are ahead of 2013 for this point of November in terms of Russian snow cover, and also for Scandinavian snow cover too. That's 2012, we're ahead of 2012, just about, I think, for Russian snow cover, and probably just a little bit behind it for Scandinavian snow cover, maybe on a par with for Scandinavian snow cover. Actually, I think we're a little bit behind it for Scandinavia, 2012. That's 2011. We're ahead for Scandinavian snow cover at this point of the year. We're behind, though, for Russian snow cover. That's 2010. Now we're well ahead of 2010 for Russian and Scandinavian snow cover. Quite interesting. That's 2009. I think we're behind 2009 for Russian snow cover, and probably just about for Scandinavian snow cover too. That's 2008. So we are ahead of 2008 for Russian snow cover, and also for Scandinavian snow cover. That's 2007, behind 2007 for Russian snow cover, probably though ahead of it for Scandinavian snow cover. That's 2006, so we're behind 2006 for Russian snow cover, probably quite closely matched, or a little bit behind for Scandinavian snow cover. 2005, well ahead of 2005, both Russian and Scandinavian snow cover too, and also well ahead of 2004 for Russian and Scandinavian snow cover. That's 2003. We're ahead of 2003 for Russian and Scandinavian snow cover. We're behind 2002. We're ahead of 2001, particularly for Scandinavian snow cover, probably quite closely matched for Russian snow cover. We're ahead of 2000 for both Scandinavian and Russian snow cover. We're probably behind 1999 for Russian snow cover, but ahead for Scandinavian snow cover. And then finally 1998. So I think with that one, we are probably ahead for Scandinavian snow cover, but a little bit behind for Russian snow cover, perhaps. But I don't think there's a lot of it, probably on a par, actually, for Russian snow cover this year. Right, so there we go. Talked for 55 minutes, and we've still got the third and final part of our 11th Winter 2019-2020 update to get through. So I'm going to pause the video there. We'll meet you back here in around 2 seconds' time. And then we're going to look at our last batch of analogues, which are going to be focusing on September and October precipitation and the winters that followed that precipitation. All be explained in part 2 of the video. So I'll see you back here in around 2 seconds' time. See you soon. Alright, we're back, and we're ready to resume the third and final part of the 11th Winter 2019-2020 update. I can't believe when this is out of the way, I've only got 2 more updates left to do, update number 12 and update number 13, and then we will be on into the winter forecast on the 1st of December. Please let me know what you thought to this winter update. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it interesting and informative. Let me know in the comments, and also when we do the live stream, of course, which we're going to be doing between 5 and 6 o'clock on YouTube, talking about this winter update, amongst other things. So the final part of this video is going to be focusing on England and Wales precipitation for September and October. We have had 2 very wet months for September and October precipitation. Our good friend James Ackrill has given us a little table here telling us how wet it's been for England and Wales precipitation in October and in September and October. So September, England and Wales precipitation came out at 124.6 millimetres. October was even wetter at 149 millimetres, a pair of very wet months for September and October, with a total for the 2 months of 273.6 millimetres. That ranks it the 10th wettest September and October combination, if you like, the wettest, the 10th wettest on records. These are the years that were wetter for September and October. Number one comes out at 1903, phenomenally wet, ranked at number one for England and Wales precipitation with a phenomenal 102.9 millimetres in September and a very, very phenomenal 218.1 millimetres for October 1903. Remember, this takes us back to the very start of the video of the update when we was looking at October pattern matches, because we did have October 1903 in there as one of our pattern matches. So look how phenomenally wet that is, and a combined England and Wales precipitation of 321 millimetres for September and October 1903. Right, so let's start looking at some of those years that have very wet Septembers and Octobers in terms of England and Wales precipitation. And the first one is 1841. And the winter that follows that September-October precipitation combination is winter of 1841-1842, with extensive northern blocking up to our north and below average heights to our south and east. We're pulling in cold easterly winds in the winter of 1841-1842. That's a cold winter. The next winter following September and October rainfall is 1848-1849. This one with above average heights to our southwest, below average heights up to our north. It's a milder winter, this one, for 1848-1849. I think it does have some colder moments in there, but I think overall that's a relatively mild winter. The next winter is 1852-1853. This one looks like a very unsettled winter with below average heights through the UK and much of Western Europe. High pressure up to the north, the jet stream sent southwards as well. That one is going to be a really wet winter. Probably not overly cold, but I think that's a very, very wet winter that we had there in 1852-1853. The next winter is 1866-1867, another wet winter with below average heights coming in from the north, above average heights to our south, and also blocking towards Greenland. I think overall that's a very wet winter for 1866-1867. Then we move on to 1871-1872, following this wet September-October combination, and we have below average heights again centred very much over the top and just to the west of the country. We're opening the floodgates to the Atlantic. That is another really wet winter. Probably not particularly cold, but it's another really wet winter for 1871-1872. And then we're on to 1872-1873. We have another wet winter. Definitely favouring wet winters here following these wet Septembers and Octobers. Very, very much so. Really wet winter for that one. Our next winter is 1875-1876. This one's a drier winter with some above average heights to the north. Finally, something a little bit drier and maybe a little bit colder as well, as winds would be favoured to be more from an easterly direction. Next we have 1880-1881. That showed up in our pattern matches, of course. This one was a very cold winter, particularly so in January, with extensive northern blocking, and the jet stream is shoved a very long way south. So it's severely cold in January 1881, very snowy too. Overall, it's a cold winter. We have 1882-1883. This one is a milder and wetter winter with low pressure over to the west of the country, bringing in those winds from west-southwesterly direction. That's one of the milder winters during solar cycle 12. Then we have the winter of 1883-1884. This one is a rather milder winter too, with the above average heights over to south country, average heights up to north. Jet stream is pushed northwards And that one is a rather milder and drier winter. The next winter is 1885, 1886, another solar cycle 12 winter, interestingly, with above average heights out to our west and below average heights to our south. That's a colder winter. That's bringing in the winds from the north or the northeast on average, and that is a more wintry type winter. And then the next one, and the last one for the 1800s, been loads of them though, is winter of 1896, 1897. This one looks a bit on the colder side too, with below average heights to our south and above average heights to the north. We send the jet stream southwards, so that's a rather colder winter for 1896, 1897. Next we have 1903, 1904. Again, this showed up in our October pattern matches. It follows the wettest September and October combination on record. We had a phenomenally wet October in 1903, and the overall winter of 1903, 1904 is also very, very unsettled and really, really wet as well in 1903, 1904. Next we have 1918, 1919. This one another very unsettled winter with below average heights to the west. It does have some higher pressure to the north. I think there's cold snaps in this winter. The main thing though is that it's very wet. Then we've got 1924, 1925, another unsettled and Atlantic driven winter. Bring the winds in from the southwest in the winter of 1924, 1925. 1932, 1933 is our next winter following these wet Septembers and Octobers. This one is a drier and colder winter with high pressure to our east and favouring bringing in the winds from more of an easterly direction. That's a rather drier and colder winter in 1932, 1933. But we're back in business with the wet stuff for the next winter, which is 1936, 1935, 1936. This one, again, it's low pressure dominated. There is some higher pressure within the northern latitudes, but I think the main thing about this winter, again, it's very wet winter in 1935, 1936. 1960, 1961 comes up next. This one with lots of low pressure to the north and west and bringing in the winds from a westerly direction. That's one of the milder winters of the 1960s. Most of them were cold, but that's a milder one. Then we've got 1967, 1968. This one with the below average heights to the east of us. The above average heights are out to the west of us, regularly bringing wind from the north. Lots of cold snaps involved in that, particularly through January and February 1968. Next we have 1968, 1969. This is a cold winter with high pressure blocking around Greenland, low pressure underneath it through the Atlantic into southern Europe. This one has a white Christmas, famously so, and a cold end to December 1968. Then it goes mild and wet January 1969 before the winter really bites in February 1969. And then we've got 1976, 1977. This one with high latitude blocking up to our north and low pressure over the country. It continues to make up to the rainfall deficit that occurred through the middle of the 1970s, so it's a very wet winter. It's also cold early on though. This one has a cold December and early January and then gets milder. We've got 81, 82 as our next winter following wet September and October combination. This one with low pressure to the south, blocking towards Greenland. Very much a front-loaded winter, really cold in December and to early January, and then it gets milder later in January and through February. We've got 1987 and 1988 turning up next. This one is a mild and wet winter, the start of a trilogy of mild and wet winters from or through the late 1980s. We've got 1998, 1999 turning up next. This one with the above average heights out to the west, below average heights up to the north, winds coming in from the west. That's some mild 1990s winters. And then finally, for these winters following wet Septembers and Octobers. We've got 2000 and 2001. This is almost a very cold winter. It's got below average heights to our west-southwest, but high pressure to our north. For Scotland, it is actually quite a cold winter, this one. Brings quite a lot of snow to Scotland. For England and Wales, not that cold, but it is very, very close to being a cold winter. It does have several cold snaps, especially around Christmas to New Year 2000, and then on-off through January and February. Particularly for Scotland, early February was very cold and snowy. Putting all of those years together, this is how all Decembers combined are looking following those wet Septembers and October. And it is a wet signal for December too, very much so, with low pressure extending through the UK and west of Europe. It does have some northern blocking up to the north, but I think overall the main feature of those Decembers is very wet and unsettled. January, though, gets very much more interesting from a cold perspective. Look how much more northern blocking we've got in the all January's combined chart. High pressure sitting both to our northeast and our northwest. Low pressure tends to be to our south, and that opens the door to those easterly winds. So much colder potential in January following wet Septembers and Octobers. This is how February looks. So again, it's an unsettled signal overall, but it does have northern blocking up towards Greenland, so you could envisage a lot of these Februaries are doing something really quite cold. And then March also potentially looks very cold and wintry, below average heights around the northwest of Europe, blocking up towards Greenland. Jet stream is sent southwards. You again could envisage a cold and wintry March following those wet Septembers and Octobers. Putting all of that together, this is how the winters themselves are looking. This is how all winters combined look following wet Septembers and Octobers. Is an unsettled signal overall, with below average heights over the UK and west of Europe, blocking up to our north. Jet stream is sent southwards, but there is cold potential in there. The last thing we can show you for this is when October is wetter than September. So if we just isolate out the winters that follow, yes, wet September and October, but where October is wetter than September, this is how all Decembers combined are looking, with below average heights to the west of us, a weakened blocking signal up to the north. It's a wetter and probably milder signal for December. This is how things look in January. So in January, we tend to get a battleground UK month where October is wetter than September, with low pressure over and to the west of the country, high pressure up towards Scandinavia. That favours bringing in easterly winds in the Januaries. And then in the Februaries, that's how we look. It's a very unsettled signal overall for the all Februaries combined when October is wetter than September. Notice how all the way along the northern blocking is kind of reduced compared to the first all months combined charts. And then we get through to March though, and that one strengthens the northern blocking. So you have all of the low pressure over the north and west of Europe. We have very strong high pressure up towards Greenland. March probably holds the greatest potential of being cold out of those all months combined charts when October is wetter than September. And then finally, putting it all together, this is how all winters combined are looking following wet Septembers and Octobers, but when October is wetter than September. And it's an unsettled signal with low pressure over the UK and west of Europe, high pressure up to the northeast. So these winters do look potentially very wet. And there is a blocking signal both towards Greenland and towards Scandinavia. There could at the very least be cold outbreaks in with those winters following wet Septembers and Octobers, but where October is wetter than September. And then finally, if you've been enjoying the winter updates this year, and if you've enjoyed this 11th Winter 2019-2020 update, can you please consider becoming a patron to Gazzo? We've got 64 patrons so far. Hello and a big thank you to our 64 patrons. We would love to get to 70 patrons by Christmas. So if you would like to become a patron of Gazworthies, give us an ongoing monthly donation. All you need to do is come to Gazworthies Patreon page, sign up for a Patreon account, and then give an ongoing monthly donation, help us pay website, keep content online, Alternatively, you can become a donor for Gals Weathers, and by doing that, you will be helping us to pay for our website. You do that through PayPal. Visit Gals Weathers' PayPal page. Come here, sign it into your PayPal account, and then give a donation to Gals Weathers, however much you would like, and you'll be helping us to pay for the website, and you'll be helping us to keep content online. You'll get a shout out in the videos, and we'll say thank you so much for doing that. Right, so big thank you to all the patrons and all of the donors. We have talked for 1 hour 12 minutes. This is the longest winter update we've ever done. Winter updates seem to be getting longer as we're going along, can you believe? But we are almost coming towards the end of winter updates now. I have 2 more left to do. Update number 12 next week, which will pick up exactly where this update leaves off with more October precipitation data. We'll also have a bit of an INSO special next week, and then the 13th update will be in a couple of weeks' time. After that, we're finished with winter updates, and it will be on into winter forecast that we're releasing on the 1st of December. Whew! Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments and during the live stream that we can do on YouTube between 5 and 6 o'clock on Gazzo's YouTube channel. Also got a Christmas update coming up for you. That'll be after the live stream around 7 o'clock this evening. And this video will be placed on Winter Updates and Forecast page with a written summary after a Christmas update is posted. So I don't know how I'm going to get it all in, but I will get this posted on Winter Updates page by the end of this evening. You'll be able to come back and watch the video on demand and have a read of that written summary when you would like. At 1 hour 13 minutes, the longest ever winter update. Thank you so much for watching, and bye for now.